Our job as winemakers is to react to whatever gets thrown at us. Rain is not in the forecast, but no. Like the fourth rain, it's not in the forecast.
Sometimes these won't ripen all the way, so we'll come in and prune them off to fine tune the fruit so we're getting a full development of the flavor, so we don't get anything that's coming in too green and something that we wouldn't want in the wine.
Number one is when you pick the grapes. So the day you take the grapes off the vine is when you sort of lock in the ripeness of the grapes, which affects the flavors, the texture, the whole body, and the whole presence of the wine. So number one is that date when you decide, okay, we're going to take the grapes off the vine.
If the fruit arrives at the winery and we feel like we're on the back foot, we're already in trouble. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of forethought into the style and what we're trying to do for each wine, because each wine has to have a unique expression and a unique fermentation management strategy. We really have to think through, what do we want this wine to be, and how are we going to bring that vision to reality when we put the wine in bottle. Really making decisions on how aggressive are you going to be in cap management and tannin structures. What are you trying to build? Are you going to do an extended maceration? Are you going to do long pump overs or aggressive punch downs? Do you want this to be a gently extracted wine? Temperature on the tank and things like that. We've had a lot of discussions about that in the past on how aggressive do we want to be in our cap management. That really impacts the quality of the red wine. And for us, we err on the side of being less interventionist in the wine, and we want it to show itself naturally, not us trying to beat some flavor out of it. As the wine's going through primary fermentation, so even early on in its life, it's critical that you are tasting the wine as often as possible to see how it evolves. And while we certainly don't shy away from getting analytical data, it's not enough in itself to tell you how the wine is evolving in its infancy there. And you really have to rely on the muscle memory that you've developed over the years as a winemaker to really see if this is evolving into something that's compelling and interesting, and ultimately something that's going to be delicious in the bottle. You know, with a name like Terratorium, you have the origin word of terroir, so that speaks to, we want the grape and the site to be the main thing that shows through the wine. These are some of the only new barrels that we own. It's a winery, and we keep our new oak percentage below 20%. That's pretty low compared to some of our peers in the valley, but again, we want those spices that come from the barrel to be a supporting flavor. We want the juicy flavors of the vineyard to come through, along with those more complex flavors like for Cab Franc, baking spices, and bergamot tea. Some of those varietal characteristics that are key that also show what is more emphasized from the site. So we really aren't trying to do anything that's too fancy in the winery, trying to just let the vineyard show through. Really, I lump rosés and white wine together in this one, and we want them to be bright, crisp, full of flavors, but also not something that is too heavy. We want it to be just an easy drinking wine that you can really enjoy with food or by itself. One of the key critical things is the acid structure on it. So we want to prevent things like a secondary fermentation that may occur that would round out the acid profile or make the wine a little more, kind of lush. We want it to be crisp, lean, acid driven on both the rosé and our white wines. And tools that we use are like these stainless steel barrels, which are great because they don't impart any flavors on the wine, but they allow it to age in a really nice fashion over the next, kind of 6 months that they're in barrel. And then we'll use these old neutral barrels. So this one's 14 years old. All the flavors have been extracted from it, and that means it's great for aging these wines for a short period of time, giving them a little bit of oxygen, things that are good for wine when it's aging, but not any flavors. So we're really going to maintain just the grape is showing through in the wine when it goes to bottle.
When it's time to finish the wines, when all of the basic winemaking is complete, the fermentations, aging in oak, it's important to first come and evaluate all of the individual components. That's usually each barrel, each tank. The most important thing is just to understand what each component is, what it tastes like, what it feels like, and then start the blending process. And that's just a fancy word for trying different wines together. But it's perhaps the most important part of winemaking, because you have to shut down that forepart of your brain, that thinking of logic, because you can't logic your way to a blend. You just have to taste. You have to try all the individual elements. You have to put them together in trials, tasting and really just paying attention to flavors, to textures, letting the wine let you know when the blend's complete.
You guys cool if I pour this in the control?
Yeah, we've got 5% max. So maybe we should start by looking at maximum and taper down. Let's taste all our components.
I think the benefit for the 3/4 would just be the color.
Yeah.
I have rose petal, cherry, caramel. But I think the sweetness there actually adds a nice texture, honestly, and it kind of rounds off the edges. It's green acid.
I'm gonna go new in the left. I think we gotta recognize the red fruit. We got a couple good characters.
That was when it was more reductive.
Yeah, that makes you think sweet, right?
I think we flip out clove, and then we just gotta figure out the oak.
It's a very satisfying part of the process. When you found your blend, you put it together, the wine tastes great. I think that's one of my favorite parts of winemaking. Starting to open up a little bit.
Any interventions across the board you think we need to do?
For this wine?
Any wine. So Riesling game plan, we're gonna drop the 10, try to do that.
Yeah.
I think unfortunately in the wine world, we have these two camps of, natural wine versus the big opulent, kind of cult wines that we've seen in the last 20, 30 years. And for Terratorium, the space we're trying to carve out is really not in either one of those. We want to be classic, simple, low intervention winemaking that shows the flavors of the fruit in the vineyard and can be something unique, something you couldn't buy just off any shelf. You need to, seek that out, seek out that craft product. And we want to bring that to our consumers' glass.